ghetto. You're like a professional in industry. Like, how do you go to conferences?
It started cracking so early on. I mean, it started cracking like maybe a year into it. I think there was a little teeny imperfection or something, and it got caught.
Yeah,
and then just from there, it's been,
well, those things they were prone to do that. I think from early on.
Anyway,
I want to hear about Stephen Pressfield. Can we talk about that real quick?
No, you just have to read it.
No. I want you to tell me why it's important.
Why do you want me to tell you what it's
because I don't read.
There's this post from Stephen Pressfield. Do you know who Stephen Pressfield is, Dane?
No.
Okay. He's awesome.
He's an amazing writer. He wrote like The Legend of Bagger Vance, but he also writes quite a bit about. He wrote this great book called The War of Art that Seth Godin picked up, and comprises a very large portion of Lynchpin, his big book.
Yeah.
So it's all about how there's this thing and the phenomenon in the world called the resistance. So anytime you're trying to do something, the resistance shows up and tries to convince you not to do it and gives you excuses why you shouldn't do it. So he's basically talking about, the war of art is about doing the work. So he wrote this great post called Resistance and Addiction just yesterday. And it's just so good because it's talking about you can be addicted to a lot of different things. It's not just alcohol or drugs. Of course, that's part of it. And then I'm just going to read you this one paragraph because I think this kind of leads into it. It says, the pre-addictive individual experiences a calling to art, to service, to honorable sacrifice. In other words, positive aspiration, a dream, a vision of the higher self he or she might be. The intimation of this calling is followed immediately, as we know, by the apparition of resistance. The dragon rears its head, fear, self-doubt, self-sabotage. What makes this moment so soul precarious is that most of us are unconscious in the event, both of our aspirations and of our resistance. We're asleep. We know only that we feel bad, something's wrong, we're restless, we're bored, we're angry, we're seeking something grand, but don't know where to look. And even if we did, we're so terrified and so paralyzed that we can't take a step. And then it talks about how addicts are boring. Basically, they're fascinating because they tend to be pretty talented, but they're boring because they do the same thing over and over and they don't do the work. So that's what the post is all about. And it's just a really, I don't know, it's just kind of stuck with me since I read it yesterday.
That, he is totally stuck with me too, because I read Lynchpin first.
Right, I did too.
And it was as a result of Lynchpin in the, as much as I'd heard that he'd picked that Godin had picked up from Pressfield, as the spiritual predecessor of that book. I thought, and War of Art is not a long book. I mean, it's almost a pamphlet. It's a booklet.
So 100 pages?
Yeah,
maybe?
Yeah, it's nothing. But it's more like, what it feels like to me? It feels like my drunk uncle. I don't really have a drunk uncle, but if I did have a drunk uncle who only spoke the truth, right?
Right.
And I feel like I sit down, this vision, sitting down on the ottoman in a dark, smoky room, and my drunk uncle, he's got a scotch in one hand and a cigarette in the other, and he says, "You know why you can't get any work done?" And I say, "Why?" And he says, "'Cause you're a dick. Stop being a dick. You get up in the morning, don't be a dick, and do your work." And that's what it was. It was like that. I read 100 pages of my drunk uncle, Stephen Pressfield, yelling at me about why I can't get my work done. And it was so motivating. Like, I found myself so motivated to get up and actually do something.
Yeah.
It was really great. Dane, you should read that book.
It's a great book. I should read it again.
I'm a glutton for punishment.
It is. It's like just kick sand right in my face. Hard.
Masochistic reading experience.
It is a masochistic, but it's so good. And
good. So good.
There was this quote, with the I don't know if you heard, Steve Jobs passed away. And there was a great quote that I had forgotten that I just heard listening to another show this morning, and it was that the new CEO of Nike called Steve Jobs and said, "Do you have any advice for me?" And Steve Jobs says, "Nike makes some really beautiful stuff and a lot of crap. You should stop making the crap." I just think that's just true. That's pretty powerful stuff. Stop making the crap.
That kind of sounds like some of his email responses that sort of trickle up through the news. Where somebody finally got a response to from Steve Jobs, and it tends to be, I don't know what it was like to be around the guy, but you kind of get a picture from a lot of the things that have been coming out lately. And of course, I don't know, other anecdotal things you hear, but just seems like he just cut to the chase pretty much, and wasn't trying to sugarcoat anything.
Have either of you guys interested in the book?
Yeah,
William Isaacson.
Oh, Steve Jobs, the book on Steve Jobs.
I'm trying to figure out, should I get it for the iPad or just get a regular old book that weighs a little bit less, or should I get the audio book? Because I tend to read audiobooks more than I read real books.
You read audiobooks?
I get through them, is what I mean to say.
That's how we justify not being able to read. Just by using the word read with audiobooks.
Yeah. Feels like I read it.
It is reading. You are digesting the content.
6 months later, I can't tell you whether I read it or listened to it.
I bought it on iBooks for the iPad, and I like Kindle, but the format's fine, but I find the reading experience a little bit nicer on iBooks. And it came in a couple hours before midnight on the 23rd and I started reading it, and it's more than anything else, what's so great about it is it's a warts and all book. I mean, Isaacson pulls no punches in the people he interviewed to talk about just what a colossal a-hole Steve Jobs could be. And that's what I'm probably halfway through it, but what I like so much about it is I think a lot of people who are, we've been through kind of the mourning period. There was the week of where we realized we just lost our Ben Franklin, kind of a thing. Mm-hmm. And now we're like, okay, he was a jerk and to work for, and he was, and the people who were most impacted by that are the people who created some of the best products, right? These, like, they were motivated by him pushing so hard, and so that's fine. But what I really think the most powerful lesson is the power of kind of one person being able to live through all those faults and kind of evolve through it to actually be a showcase of this sort of new person, right? I mean, when he died, I feel like the last year of his life was about showcasing all the lessons learned, and that, everybody is driven by demons, and how can you actually kind of learn to live with those demons and do some good, and teach. And, he was kind of the archetype of a teacher in the end. And, I found that very powerful. And the book, I think, really showcases that.
Yeah, I'm now you've got me interested in reading it. And I think he what was I just going to say? I completely lost my train of thought. I was just going to say, I can't imagine how much perseverance, and I mean, granted, he has more money than God, so he had every available resource, but pancreatic cancer, you don't typically live. How long did he live with pancreatic cancer? 7 years?
Yeah.
I mean, it's usually like you're lucky to live 1 year or 6 months. I mean, that is a nasty, nasty cancer.
Well, and the tragedy,
even just that is.
I think the tragedy, sort of the bittersweet part of it, is that, when he first found out he had it, he went all holistic and really refused the advice of his doctors and his family to go get the surgery, go get it done. He had more than a year notice, apparently, of the fact that this was going to need to be done, and he chose not to. He went on a completely holistic treatment regimen, and finally his doctor said, "This is it. You get this, or you've got days, not months, kind of a thing." And so he went and got the treatment. It was really very ill, and that's one of the things that is kind of coming out to me, is that these last couple of years he was very ill. And he would get up on stage and do these keynotes, and
that doesn't make you less of a jerk either. That's for sure.
What do you mean?
When you're sick, it's very hard to keep it together and be civil. And I mean, I get a cold and I can barely be civil to my family, so I can't imagine being in pain and suffering all the time. I mean,
and he was always an impatient person, but I'm sure that character quality was amplified in the last couple of years, and he thought, I'm sure, for good, but this sort of impatience. I mean, I read other things about how he just had sort of let go of, trying to, I don't know. I mean, life wasn't sort of limitless or infinite. He knew that there was an end coming, and it gave him a little more courage, or a little less trepidation, I guess, whether or not he ever had trepidation. But I think also just his level of impatience, I'm sure, grew quite a bit, which probably is reflected in some of the quotes or conversations you hear, him having had in the last few years.
Yeah.
But since we're on the topic of Steve Jobs, can I say something?
Absolutely, Dan.
Of course, Dan.
Dan, you could say whatever you want.
Please.
Thanks.
At any
Really?
time.
Say it, Dane.
It's crazy. This is America.
What's on your chest?
It's great being. I could probably do it in Canada too, but anyway, it's fun to say America. No, I was just going to say, I was really like just thinking and mulling over like, what is this connection? I knew that I appreciated Steve Jobs and really, thought he was fascinating, and have read an autobiography before, or unofficial, whatever. What's that called? It's not autobiography, biography, right?
It'd be just a biography.
Thanks. I struggle with word usage. Anyway,
what's the opposite
of what?
Biography.
Struggle? No. Yeah, what is the opposite? Anyway, that's one that'll keep you thinking. Here's my thought, guys. You make it hard for a distractible person to really finish a sentence.
That's the truth.
So what's the connection? I mean, he's sort of all of a sudden, a rock star. I didn't expect it. I expected people to, hey, Apple's been, great. And, but, you get these quotes like he's, one of the greatest business leaders ever, or one of the greatest, I don't know, whatever, inventors or technologists or, whatever. But what I think it's sort of, and I hear it coming out too, but it's really, I think, at its core, people having an emotional response to Steve Jobs dying, I think, has everything to do with him as an artist and a designer, and the connection that people have to their device that feels somehow real, or I don't know if emotional is the word, but there's a connection to a device that goes beyond that's just a product or a piece of technology. It has an element to it that the device itself almost has a soul because of the design, qualities.
And because you depend on it so fully on a daily basis.
But I think it's not so much that, I mean, people depend on their cars, but don't, cry when, a car maker dies or whatever, or even when the car company folds. It's really like this man. Somehow there was the connection you feel to your iPad or whatever, your iPhone, I don't know, was the connection you felt to Steve Jobs in a way. And I think I really think there's something about that created a response I wouldn't have expected with him passing. I think it's Steve Jobs, the artist, that makes it like a rock star died. You know what I mean?
Well, did you guys? Did you happen to? Are you Daily Show fans? Do you watch any of the Daily Show?
I wish I could watch
more of the Daily
Show. I love the Daily Show.
It's the episode. Excuse me, not last night, but the night before was Walter Isaacson was actually on the show, and they're talking and they're talking actually about the difference between Steve Jobs and Bill Gates. And one of the things Isaacson was pointing out was that these guys were actually very close in their time. They were much closer than we than we think. And in so many respects, I mean, they were both born the same year. They grew up sort of together, and their businesses grew in parallel, but they were almost two halves of the same brain, right? It was that left brain, right brain approach to developing a technology organization and developing these tools. And in the end, Isaacson himself said, in the end, Bill Gates made the Zune and Steve Jobs made the iPod. There's Jon Stewart saying, I think that's probably the best eulogy one could ever make for this guy. It's a very different approach. And I don't imagine, as much as you look at how much Bill Gates has changed the world in largely the same way. I mean, the way he got MS-DOS at IBM and the way he got, the shenanigans, the political shenanigans and the ethical questionable ethical tactics that both of these guys used in their youth allowed them to build the tools and leverage the tools that have created the world we live in today. And that's kind of a magical place, but the approach is so analytical, and that we don't have that emotional connection to those devices. I don't think that we do for those who have made the choice to use Apple products.
He actually had
profound.
That was it, right? You guys, I turned you right off.
That was it. Let's stop recording now, because that was done.
Oh,
that was it.
I don't get it to say my thought.
All right, say your thought. Knowing that it pales in comparison to no.
Oh, you guys.
Go ahead, because I have one more.
I'm just going to kick my sand.
I want you to
kicking my feet in the dirt. No, I was just going to say that I read a quote from him from about 10 years ago or so. I don't know. Maybe it was when the original sort of iMac came out and he was, back to the company as a interim CEO. But he really sort of waxed poetic about the design process and how he thought people just didn't get what it meant, that he thought most people think of design as the veneer, the color, the shape or whatever, but he saw it as he did say the soul of the product. That he said our language doesn't really have words to really capture what design can be, to sort of what's the word, transcend a product beyond a box with a black color or whatever. And he was trying to describe this whole concept of the product having a soul that you then have an ability to connect to it. And I just think he accomplished that. So
I heard there's another story I haven't actually read yet, but I hear is later in the book one of the stories he says early on is the story of his dad talking about, as they're building a fence together. And his dad says, you got to spend every bit as much time on the back of the fence as you do on the front of the fence, because that shows you really care about the entire package and perfection of the product, right, of the finished product. And so later, as somebody brings him the first iPod prototype to look at, or one of the early prototypes, Jobs' response is, "It's too big." He says, it's not too big. I mean, we can't make it any smaller. It's a perfect little package. He says, no, it's too big. He says, it's not too big. So he walks over to a fish tank and he drops it in the fish tank, and air bubbles come out of it. And he says, there's still air in there. There's room to make it smaller. And that was the end of the discussion. Which, that's kind of to me, that's one of those things that just sort of stood out. I mean, there's a guy who lived the essence of insanely great. I mean, do whatever it takes to make the best product that you possibly can. And I know we're kind of belaboring this, and as people have been talking about Steve Jobs for way too long. And anyway, but if you haven't had a chance to go watch the event, the Apple event, where they closed all the this was fascinating. Did you hear about this? They closed all the retail stores for a couple of hours on the 19th, and had this great big thing. Have you watched any of it?
No.
It was terrific. Tim Cook obviously spoke, a couple of other executives, early board member, Al Gore, and then Johnny Ive, all spoke for about 20 minutes each and shared their thoughts. And then they had Norah Jones and Coldplay. They flew Coldplay in to play 4 songs and close out the session. And they posted it all live. And it was just, it was a really beautiful celebration of kind of what they kind of felt to this guy, but you could kind of hear in the voices of the executives that, no, the company culture isn't going to change, but man, are we excited to do some things a little bit differently, and to think about how we approach these products kind of a little bit differently, and to really not walk around every day and think, what would Steve do? But to walk around every day and say, how would we make these products insanely great? And that was kind of a neat thing to watch them process collectively so publicly. It's one of those things I think a lot of organizations could learn.
He certainly wasn't the only genius at Apple.
Well, and not even just at Apple. Have you guys ever seen the Pixar story?
Mm-mm.
You can stream it on Netflix, and it's
because he started Pixar, right?
No, he did not. This is it's a fantastic story, right? Pixar was actually it started as a software and hardware division at Lucasfilm. Mm-hmm. And they had made this software rendering engine called RenderMan, and that was used in the early CG early CG films. And Lucas was trying to build a hardware software platform that they could sell in the production industry to make to do computer graphics. And this guy who had been an animator at Disney and let go because they didn't know what to do with a guy who all he wanted to do was computer graphics at the time, John Lasseter, met Ed Catmull, who was a PhD, computer scientist.
University of U graduate.
Yeah. And so he met him at a conference after Lasseter had been laid off, and Lasseter's an animator, and Catmull says, I'm head of this division that we know animation, but we aren't artists. Like, we know how to do the computer side, but we don't have anybody to lead the art. So they hired Lasseter, and George Lucas, after a couple of years, said, you know what, we're just wasting money on this thing. We have no direction, and we're not selling this stuff. And I'm not interested. If we're going to do this, if you're going to really make something of it, you got to find somebody who invests $30-40 million. And I don't have it. And so Lucas agreed to spin it off to, Steve Jobs as primary investor. And that's how Pixar was born, because Steve really met John Lasseter as a guy who was a kindred spirit. And you can really feel that if there's anybody, there are guys in this circle that have the exact same level of attention to creative detail and passion for perfection. And John Lasseter is one of them. That guy, he looks like a cartoon character himself, but you can tell that dude's driven by demons too. And and to see what he did with Pixar over the course of hit after hit after hit, and finding the right people to take over after he stopped directing the pictures and really was building the studio. It is an amazing story to watch, and I think it's it's overshadowed, and Steve's role is kind of overshadowed by all the Apple discussion, that Pixar is another incredible success story.
And did you guys ever read the Poe Bronson book, Nudist Working the Late Shift?
No.
Mm-mm.
There's a little story in there about that. So the title story, it's a collection of short stories about the Silicon Valley during its, boom period, heyday, the late 90s. And there was a guy at Pixar who really just could only work naked. So they made arrangements for him to work the late shift, to work sort of graveyard. He'd be in there by himself, naked. And and the people who sort of needed to know knew, but not everyone knew. And I guess like a janitor caught one time, was like, "What the heck?"
That's awesome.
That would totally be you, Dane.
I need no permission. I'm in my office.
Yeah,
here,
you're in your own little office.
And
just wait till we go to Google Hangout. You can't be naked.
Can you imagine having that conversation with your supervisor? I just have to tell you something.
I do my best.
It's a little idiosyncrasy.
Just a small
one. It's just a small one.
I need the accommodation.
That's crazy.
That's good.
But they gave him the accommodation.
That's fantastic. So anyway. They gave him the account. He's a special needs case.
Nice. Yeah, definitely.
It's an ADA requirement of some sort.
Well, may I change the subject?
Yeah.
Because I honestly have a
question
question
about Google?
for Dane. I am going to talk about Google.
I love this.
So I have a question for you, Dane.
Yeah, ma'am.
I was looking at my Google Analytics the other day, and when I was looking at traffic sources, I think that's what I was looking at, there was this little parenthetical thing that said something that I'm going to screw up right now. It's called something to the effect of what's it called, Peter? Not performed or something like that. It's this weird little thing. So I figured when I Googled what the heck that was, as you probably know, and I did not, it turns out that Google, via Google Analytics, is not tracking... Oh, it was keywords. I don't remember what it was. Google is not tracking logged-in users via analytics. So if you're logged into Google and you're doing searches, Google is no longer tracking those searches organically in your analytics. So I think that's kind of a bummer. And I wanted to know what your take on that was.
That's it said not set. Is that right?
Not set? Maybe that's what it was.
Does that sound familiar?
I should really get my facts straight before I bring a question to you. I had them straight, but that was like last week.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know if I have an opinion about that. I mean, from an analytics standpoint, you want to know, the data for you is anonymous. You can't really, there are things that you used to be able to do, which would include finding like IP addresses or sort of root domain sources. So you could sort of pinpoint, how many people from this company are searching for you or landing on your website.
Right.
Be a really interesting thing to know, but they firewalled that, and you can't do that. So there have always been these little things that they could do, but they don't do, to keep a certain level of anonymity. The idea that if you're logged in as a Google user, I can't.
Well, wait a minute. Is it saying that you as a logged in user of analytics of that account are not being tracked? So, like,
No.
why would it want to track your Megan's search results? Like, that's the way it usually works. Like, if you have analytics or you have some sort of tracking, you don't want to track administrative users because that would inflate your
No.
responses.
It's just like any logged in Google user. It's called not provided, and it's when you look at traffic sources and under the organic section and you're looking at keywords, it's like, here's my top 6 keywords, and then number 7 is not provided, parenthetically. And when I looked that up, what they said was any logged in Google user, they were stopping tracking their keyword searches, which makes very little sense to me.
I see not set showing up. I have really not encountered not provided as anything in a top 10 that was of any concern.
Maybe I just have really weird websites.
So wait a minute. So you went under traffic sources under keywords? I'm going there now. I'm trying to
traffic sources, organic. And by the way, I need some sort of analytics. Like, I need a brain shift because this new interface is kind of making me a little bit.
Oh, you're on the new version. See, I got to change that. I'm using the old version.
Well, I need to.
Crazy.
It makes me a little. I just need to take the time to kind of learn it a little bit better. Okay. I'm sure they have wonderful videos. I just haven't.
Traffic sources. All traffic direct.
I'm not logging in to check this out because I've still got the CPU thing going on.
I'm not doing it.
Okay, so I'm under there. And where does it say not provided?
Well, what are you looking at?
Well, I'm not.
Are you looking at my account?
No.
Okay.
I'm looking at a different one.
Traffic sources, and then under search.
Organic. Okay. And where?
My number 7 says not provided.
Okay.
Do you see any of yours that say? And what I read was somewhere within the top 10 there'll be something that says not provided.
Oh,
I found a not provided. It's number 26.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah, and so
maybe I just have weird sites.
Yeah, because I haven't really come across this or been concerned about it or even really been aware of it because it never shows up in a position of any of the sites that I'm tracking to really matter. I get not set, which is generally
not paid.
Yeah, paid that isn't tracking or the other thing though that happens is people choose to, like, if you're in Safari, you can choose private, and then it won't be tracking, and more people prefer to be anonymous that way. But that's the one. So if you've set privacy on your browser, that's the one that I've known affects analytics. I didn't know being a Google user affected your analytics results. And again,
you have to be signed into your Google account.
Yeah, but most people are, right? I mean, I think if you're using Google, I don't know.
No. It's like it's not.
I see the announcement. I get it.
It's not tracking the people that are logged in. It's not that you're logged in. It's not that I, as an administrator, am logged into analytics. It's like if I'm Megan Strand searching around on the internet and I happen to be logged into my Google account, like on Google Plus or whatever, it's not tracking my stuff. Let's see. Google will be redirecting signed-in users to google.com, thus encrypting the search results page.
HTTPS google.com instead of HTTP. They're putting it over in SSL secure.
That.
If you're logged in, you're going to be SSL secure by default.
Yeah. Interesting.
And that's so, you can't be sniffed if you're in a public Wi-Fi, your search would be secure. It encrypts all your queries.
It just seems a little ironic since the Google Analytics is it's a Google product and it's used so widely. I sort of feel like, okay, are you now rolling out the paid version of analytics so they'll unreveal?
No, this is a bigger deal. This is not gaming. This is a security move, and I like this. So when you search from https://google.com, websites you visit from our organic search listings will still know that you came from Google, but will not receive information about each individual query. They can still receive an aggregated list of the top 1,000 search queries that drove traffic to the site for each of the past 30 days through Google Webmaster Tools. This information helps webmasters keep more accurate statistics about their user traffic. If you choose to click on an ad appearing on our search results page, your browser will continue to send the relevant query over the network to enable advertisers to measure the effectiveness of their campaigns and to improve the ads and offers they present to you. As we continue to add more support for SSL services across SSL across our products and services, we hope to see similar action from other websites. Really, they're just trying to make it so that you, as a publisher, can't see me as a logged-in user that I actually visited your site because I searched for something specific, so that you can't tie my keyword search to your site to me personally.
Yeah, but then it doesn't give you any keyword, does it? I mean,
not in analytics, but you can still, in Webmaster Tools, you can still go in and see all of the keyword data from that not provided. You just can't.
Okay, it's just a source thing then. Okay.
Exactly. So you just, I think what that tells you, and Dane, check me on this, right? What that tells you is you're having more interactivity from people who are logged in users of Google products. And that's actually a good thing, because that tells you that, wow, my users will likely be what? They'll likely be more engaged in technology because they're aware of when they are logged in or not, likely. They might be more likely to be on Google Plus as that network continues to grow, and more likely to see relevant content in search results related to Google Plus, like author information. So we might want to be more rigorous about, tying our authors into, the new Google Plus, author information protocol.
Yeah. So
you're learning stuff by,
right?
Yeah. By looking at those analytics.
You can get caught. You can get caught in saying, well, only these three analytic measurements are, these are only three I care about, and the only three I'm going to look at week after week. And, which it's always good to have sort of a measure that you think is, a key performance indicator or something that you want to focus on, and you can track it so you can see if there are changes. That's good. But you can, I think, also get caught in let's say keyword searches are, sort of the number one thing you're looking at, and now you're not getting a certain percentage of that data anymore. And so you think something's broken. But yeah, Pete is, sort of pointing out, well, wait a minute. There's always something that we can learn here about our users, and what we need to be doing is thinking below the surface a bit, so that we're understanding our customers beyond just how do they find our site or what keyword searches are working for our website, but something else that we can, I guess, evaluate in terms of from a marketing approach. Should we, like you said, Pete, be more engaged in Google Plus, or should we be doing paid search? Should we be doing what can we understand about their level of technology literacy? Or you do, I think, and sometimes changes like this can force you, I think, to think a little differently. That's always a good thing. And like you just pointed out, Pete, now we're moving from one product to another, and they really should both be used if you I think are taking everything to the next level, Webmaster Tools and analytics. Plus, there are other, what I'd be curious to know is there are other analytic products out there like Site Catalyst from Omniture, and I wonder how this might be affecting them. I would imagine that it is.
That's right.
But there are other ways, like ClickTail, for instance, is quite a heavy analytic product, and it doesn't really focus on how they got to your site, but it focuses on what they do when they're on your site. So there are things, I think, that are worth sort of re-examining and reevaluating in terms of what's of value to you as you try to bring in a larger audience and meet that audience's needs.
Yeah, totally. I agree.
Excellent. Thank you.
I want to talk about Facebook, though. Can we talk about Facebook real quick?
Oh, let's talk about Facebook.
Wow, of course we should.
Whoa. What part? What specifically are we talking about?
Whoa, that was a little much for me. I don't.
Sorry, what are we talking about with Facebook, Peter?
She's excitable.
I feel like I just drank a milkshake on Facebook for the last forever.
Well, good. Then you can answer this question for me.
I don't know,
because I am what I like to call a public figure on Facebook. That's how Facebook chooses to look at me.
So cool.
They do because
Why
I have.
Do you have a jillion friends?
No, that's not the case. I want to know what you think I should do. So first of all, let's talk about this new timeline thing. I know it's been out in beta for developers for a while. Facebook halted the rollout because I think there's some copyright or trademark dispute about their use of timeline. Have you guys activated the new timeline feature for yourselves?
No,
I'm afraid to.
I know you can. I just haven't. Have you? You probably have.
Of course.
Well, and you're also a photographer, so you probably have a lot better pictures than I do.
Well, no, it's
and I'm
quite.
Also not
it's
going
interesting.
back and posting pictures of myself when I'm a baby.
No, I have not done that either, and I, whatever. But there were a couple things that all happened around the same time, and I've been struggling a little bit to pull them apart and figure out how Facebook wants me to behave, because that really is the ultimate determinant of
So what are you trying
success.
to pull apart?
What does Facebook want me to do? Before all of these various changes came out, it seemed to me that Facebook wanted me, in order to have people see my public work, say the photography, they wanted me to set up a page for my photography business as Pete Wright Photo. And I have that. It's a business page, right? It's a page that for me as an artist. But not long after I set that up, so now I have facebook.com/Pete Wright, that's my profile, and facebook.com/Pete Wright Photo, that's the page. And I mean, it was like a matter of weeks after that. They unlocked subscriptions so that you could subscribe to profiles, right? To me as Pete Wright.
Right.
Which is good, because that means that I can have a series of very public posts and a series of posts that can only be directed toward
with your peeps.
My peeps, right? So now I can see on my timeline, I can see that I have a certain number of subscribers that are not friends of mine, but they are actual people who are following my public posts. So that's great. So now I've got a place where people can subscribe to me, and I have a public fan page or an artist page where people can also subscribe by liking me. Well, then Facebook goes and sends me this message that says, we think that you should close your business page because you're what we call a public figure. And it would be better for you to have one place where you can manage all of your activity on Facebook. And we're not going to give you any tools to actually make that conversion. So if you close your business page, you're going to lose all your subscribers. What I'm hearing is, if you know somebody, and I'm using air quotes liberally here, if you know somebody at Facebook, they can actually do that conversion for you and make sure that all your fans are subscribers on your profile. But they make that very difficult to do. You can't contact anybody.
Annoying.
They just say cancel it. You got to close your brand page because now you have subscribers and you should use that. Now
I can
we're going to
see the rationale there, but if they're not going to help you migrate.
Well, so what do you do as a now? Obviously, if you're a brand and you have multiple people who are managing, your Facebook presence, you want to have a business page. Right. But where do you draw the line? As someone who is writing, quote, a book, end quote, on Facebook, Megan Strand, where do you draw the line?
That is not a good question for me, but yeah, I don't know. That's a hard one, Pete, because that makes sense to me. If you're a public figure and you are having people subscribe to you, I mean, I guess you could also, can you? You can't, can you? You can't really send a message out via a page to your fans.
All I can do
subscribe to you. So really, the place that this doesn't work is for people like you, who you are the brand, like you know.
Yeah. And I think there are a lot of people like me.
I don't know. I mean, I think it's maybe a slow migration and you just try to entice people over to subscribe to you. But I mean, that makes sense to me. But it's just, that's a lot of work.
Well, it's a lot of work. Luckily, I don't have very many fans because I haven't done a whole lot with the fan page. I was, I sort of feel like the Facebook bait and switch piece is, well, it just makes it.
That's the thing with Facebook is that they change things so often. It's so hard to keep up with it, and half the time what they're changing is so fundamental that you are having to move communities, which is that to me seems unfair.
Well, it's happened twice. It's never happened to me quite like that. Usually they make their change and I can see it. I can see the rationale. I get it.
And you get it, and you know how to work.
There's a sort of intuitive kind of process to it.
Right.
Like, when they announced fan pages, I jumped in because that made sense to me. And now I'm trying to figure out what their next move is by some really cloudy information that they're giving out to
You know
brands.
what I really want to know? I really want to know if they are going to change Facebook pages similar to what they've done with sort of public figures like you, Peter.
I can't imagine them not.
Subscribe to them versus liking them. Because right now, and I know they're rolling out all these gestures where you can, I'm reading, I'm listening, I'm all this, doing all these things where you can turn any verb into an online engagement. Yeah. But so far they haven't done anything.
Stop. Talk about that because that's another big deal.
That is a huge
talk about that.
So they have something called Facebook Gestures that they've just rolled out, which I don't even know if it's available widely yet. I think, last I read it was available to a small handful of sort of test brands.
Well, and if you're a developer, you can set up an app and set up define your own gestures for your website.
You
can do that right now. Yeah.
Okay, so that's available now.
Yeah.
So essentially what you're doing is turning any verb into a shared action. So if you want to say, I'm reading this post, you would click on read, and then it shares that, Peter Wright is reading those posts from Megan at Encouraged or what have you. But you can really turn any verb into a shared action. So what the reason they've done that is because Facebook has gotten a lot of feedback from people about the like button. Okay, well, I may want to engage with a brand page or a page, but I don't necessarily want to say I like them because that's implied endorsement. So I would be willing to say I'm listening to something on this page, or I'm reading, or I'm watching, or I'm whatevering. But I don't feel as comfortable saying I like that page because then it means that I endorse them, which maybe I do and maybe I don't. Maybe I'm just trying to find out about them. So that's why they're moving away from like. But so many of these interactions are like gated that that's why I'm so interested to see what they do with it.
Well, it is.
I guess it's going by the wayside, but...
I think so, especially since you can define your own context or construct, right? Like, for example, I'm looking at my own timeline, and the recent activity says I like Downcast, right? Pete likes Downcast. Downcast is a podcast catcher for iOS, and I use it. And that would be the new construct, right? I don't necessarily like it.
Yeah,
but I'm a user of it. So Pete uses Downcast might be even, and it may even be a more powerful endorsement than like, because it really does illustrate engagement. I think that's what Facebook's trying to do, is build more powerful kind of vernacular for engaging in brands and products and photos and music.
Yes, it's very exciting, but it's still sort of it's a question mark so far how it's going to completely roll out on brand pages. So yeah, I'm curious to know if there's a generic subscribe to a brand page is what I was saying, because there's a subscribe to a personality.
Yeah. It just feels like that's got to be coming, because I don't like engaging by like. I never have. And when they really started pushing that and pushing the like buttons onto websites, that made it even more sort of distasteful.
Exactly. So anyway,
like, for example, at Spotify, you sign up for Spotify in the U.S., you can't sign up as a new user for Spotify unless you sign up through Facebook.
Right.
Doesn't that rub you the wrong way? Is Dane even here anymore?
I don't know. That's what I was wondering. Dane?
I'm here. I've been meditating. Something somebody said got me really in a meditative state of mind.
I'm
glad I signed up for Spotify before they had this Facebook requirement.
Yeah, right? Mm-hmm. I find that
I pay my $10 a month.
All right.
Really, I don't want a social announcement of my musical tastes.
I know, that's hard.
Nor do I. That's not a good thing.
That might scare me, Dane.
See, here I am. I am subscribed to Dane Christensen. I also happen to be a friend, and there is a little star.
Dane's a public personality too?
No, I'm on his page.
What are you talking about?
I just went to facebook.com/altadane. That's Dane on Facebook. And I went there, and it says, and there are buttons across the top. It says friends. I am one. Subscribed. I am also subscribed.
But see, doesn't that, I mean, because don't you have to change your personality to a public?
No, that's a different
followable
thing.
Figure?
No, this is just, well, actually you do. You have to turn that feature on, and it looks like Dane has done that.
Okay,
what about you?
I
Have
have
you
not
done that?
No,
do it. Oh,
I didn't mean to do that.
Dane, I didn't mean to do that.
No, listen, you guys, you don't have to. Megan, you saying you didn't?
Yeah, and it's...
I see a subscribe button there.
No, I didn't do it.
I think they just turned that on. And
see, I think you're automatically subscribed because I'm friends with Dane and I subscribe to him, and I never subscribe. I never subscribe to Dane Christensen. I swear.
No, but I can subscribe to you.
Did it.
What I need to do is figure out: is there somebody that I don't know that I can subscribe to who wouldn't have turned this on?
Mm-hmm.
How about this person? I'm just clicking on people from your. No,
My
see,
friends.
you're right. Yeah, no, I can't. I don't know that person, and I can't subscribe to her.
No, you can't. You have to add them as a friend.
All right. The last thing we need to talk about is The Walking Dead. Are you guys watching it?
No.
Dane, tell me you're watching The Walking Dead.
Dane's gone again.
Dane? Seriously? What's the opposite of The Walking Dead? He's gone.
Dane?
He's gone. He seriously disappeared. All right.
Well, Dane.
You should watch the show, Megan. It's incredibly...
I've heard you talk about
awesome.
it. It does not compel me nearly as much as the Steve Jobs book, but...
You know, here's an interesting tidbit. It looks like Sony Pictures is trying to get... what's his name? Social Network guy. Screenwriter. No, the screenwriter.
Oh. I don't know who the screenwriter was.
Oh, come on. He did West Wing. What's his name? Dane knows this right off the top of his head. Sorkin. They're trying to get Sorkin to write the script for Steve Jobs, the Steve Jobs movie.
Can you not hear me?
Now I can hear you.
Now
you're back. Yeah.
Good night. That was crazy. It's Aaron Sorkin.
Aaron Sorkin to write the...
over here. Aaron Sorkin!
I know you were. I knew you were. I was like, I could feel your hair on fire.
Technology.
It's fantastic. All right. Well, you should all... Dane, what are you... You didn't say Walking Dead. Are you watching Walking Dead?
Oh, I had the... I watched a couple episodes last season and loved it, and so I have them recorded. I haven't watched the season yet, though. Watched like 10 minutes of it, and it was pretty compelling, but my wife just wasn't into it, so...
Good.
Yeah, it looks great.
Is it good, Peter? Do you like it, Peter?
Good. It's the best show on TV. Best show on TV. Stop.
Whatever.
Full stop.
It's not the best show on TV.
Full stop.
You say that often.
A show on TV.
I don't even know what that is. That's how much that doesn't matter to me. I've never even heard of it.
Best. Well,
what is that? Some other... It's probably on CBS.
What is
You're
it
watching
called?
a lot of CBS.
No, it's Ted Danson and Zach Galifianakis and
I do like the Ted Danson.
Is it Schwartz or Schwartzman? I don't know.
Jason Schwartzman, he's fantastic. He does the New Yorker magazine promo.
It's truly the best thing on TV.
All right, I'll give that a shot. If you catch up on Walking Dead, because we're going to need to talk about the boys going back to high school. All right.
How you doing, Megan?
I can't talk about TV.
Oh, Megan.
I gave it up for Lent a long time ago, and I just never picked it up again.
That's not the point of... Quitting is not the point of Lent.
It's also not true. It's a complete fabrication. I just made that up.
Oh, crying out loud.
Anyway, well, this has been a great conversation, boys.
All right.
I would love to talk to you again, just not about television.
Let's do it. Let's do it next week. What do you say?
Let's do it again.
All right. New website. If you go to nakedmarketers.com, it'll eventually point to the new website, which is going to be in a different place. So go there. For now, if you're hearing this, that means you're still a subscriber. So congratulations. Find us in... I hope you find us in iTunes until the website comes back. This show is being screamed into the vast dark canyon for another week.
Excellent.
All right. Good talking to you guys.
It's like a euphemism for my life.
Man, I'm going to think about that all week. All right, people. Good talk. Have a great week.
You too.
Good talk.
Be well.
Bye, boys.